Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Monday, November 10th, 2025. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host, shall I? Do you know, folks, today is National Civic Pride Day, and when I asked my co-host if she'll be celebrating it, she said no, because she has absolutely no intention of buying a Honda compact car with a rainbow flag mounted on it. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
David, I'm doing great. I just want to apologize in front of everybody for snapping a little bit on you earlier. I'm dealing with travel agencies, and it got to the best of me, and I was a little bit short with you, and I just want to make my mea culpa in front of everybody. I'm actually surprised.
Thank you for that. And I didn't know about the travel agency. And really, Sheila, there's no apology needed. When you're snapping at me, I feel like I'm at home with Lady Miss.
Well, that's good.
No skin off my nose.
I didn't even swear, I'm glad. I was just very frustrated because I felt like the entire day nobody's been listening to me. And it wasn't your fault. You were just the last person that hadn't listened to me. And so you you weren't the bot that I was trying to yell at on the chat bot that I was yelling at. It's also National Area Code Day. And I find that interesting because Toronto is referred to as the Six, right?
Sheila, thank you so much for bringing that up. I can't even joke about this. I know it's National Area Code Day. Of all the nicknames for a municipality, the idea of Toronto, the young ones, mind you, I don't see anyone like older than 30 using that, calling it the Six because a prevalent area code is 416 and 647.
Isn't that why they call it Six Buzz? That account on Instagram is called Six Buzz, and I think it's related to the six, right?
I would imagine, but it's one digit. And I mean, maybe if the area code was 666, and then we're talking about a different kettle of fish. But Sheila, for the longest time, Toronto was referred to as Hogtown. Goes back to our very beginnings. There were hog slaughtering plants here where multi-billion-dollar towers now stand. But that's fallen out of favor. I don't know. Maybe it's culturally insensitive or something. But Sheila, do you agree with me? Giving a city a nickname based on one digit of its area code? That's ludicrous.
Well, they refer to Edmonton as its airport call sign. YEG.
Okay.
And we have stores that are like YEG, whatever. That's the thing. It's like everything to do with Edmonton is YEG, YEG.
You know what?
I don't know. I think the Six is better, to be honest with you.
That's better. With Toronto, YYZ or YYZ, depending on how you pronounce the last letter of the alphabet. And I know why. I've always wondered. I think it's some other airport somewhere in the world has the obvious abbreviation of TOR. I might be mistaken, so for some reason we had to get YYZ.
Wow, whatever. It's also World Immunization Day. Someone should check in on Tamara Ugolini and see how she's celebrating.
Please, I scare easy.
Let's talk about let's get into what we're doing here, and we'll tell everybody how they can get involved, and then we'll get right into it. Oh, by the way, it's also, you said it's National Civic Day?
National Civic Pride Day.
Civic Pride. Okay. Efron or Olivia, maybe you can dig this up. Civic duty comes in many forms. And I want to show you what Lise Merle got up to at the Saskatchewan Party AGM over the weekend in Saskatoon. I was there. We'll talk about it more tomorrow when I have my Sasky with me. But she, with foresight, you got to know, people are predictable. And so we're headed over to the Sask Party AGM, and she says, Sheila, we've got to stop. She stuffs a 20 in the poppy bin, grabs a handful of poppies, and we go over and we take our place at the media booth over at the Sask Party AGM. Soon enough, of course late, all the mainstream media start showing up. And Lise notices they don't have poppies. She's got a big spread of poppies. She said Sheila, I grabbed these all knowing that they would show up without poppies. So she goes over and she's like, hi, little man from the CBC. Here's your poppy. Would you mind putting one on? Oh, hi, guy from, I forget where he was from. And there's CKOMCJME. That she had this spread of poppies. Anytime she saw somebody from the mainstream media without a poppy, she made them put one on.
Did they put them on?
Yes.
Wow. Well, first of all, A, what a bunch of cheapskates. B, in one sense, I'm happy she wasn't given some blowback of, no, I don't
She's
politicize.
Too nice. She just came over there like Auntie Lise and said, you got to put one on.
God, I love Lise. I love her feistiness,
Oh,
and I got to tell you,
was like,
Sheila,
what are you doing? I was like, we got poppies. What are you doing? She's like, just wait. And she had them all spread out, and then they started trickling in late. And she's like, no poppy, no poppy, no poppy. And she just grabbed a bunch, walked over there, and here, put it on. Here, put it on.
Doesn't that speak volumes that Lise Merle knew ahead of time that these mainstream media trained seals wouldn't be donning a poppy? I mean, unless she saw them in the parking lot, but nope. I guess she assumed correctly. I've got to tell you, Sheila Gunn-Reid, that day in December of last year, near Christmas time, when I took you and Lise Merle to the St. Lawrence Market and the bridle path, that was the most fun I had all year. It was just, man, did I feel like big man on campus, folks. And
you can hang out with us anytime.
It was unbelievable. Got to know Lise, and she's a wonderful lady.
And, she wasn't mean to them. She was like, oh, I see that you've lost your poppy. Well, good news. I have a whole table full of them. She didn't, she gave them the opportunity to be sheepish about it. She wasn't rude about it, but she's like, good news, I'm here. And I was like, you know what? Civic duty comes in many forms. And what we're watching right here is somebody executing her civic duty.
Way to go, Lise Merle.
Yep. She's a delight. And like I said, she just approached them like Auntie Lise. She wasn't like, hey, where's your poppy? She's like, I see that you've lost it, but don't worry. I'm here. Which I think is probably the best way to do it. If you are watching us, by the way, friends at home, if you're watching us on Rumble, if you want to get involved in the show, have your say and support the work that we do here at Rebel News, maybe leave us a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat over there. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, it's obligatory. We're reading it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best, time permitting. And I don't know if somebody needs the studio right after us, so just be cognizant of the time. If you are watching us on YouTube, their paid chat is called a super chat over there. Same rules apply. But also, if you are unable to watch the live version of the show, but you are moved by the spirit to support the little network that could, you can leave a paid comment. It's called the super thanks. And we just appreciate you choosing us with your money because we give you a choice. Unlike what Mark Carney does with the mainstream media, where you have to support the likes of Andrew Coyne and the other potatoes over there at the CBC. You don't like them, but you have to pay their salaries anyway. So that's it. Let's get into the show. Of course, the Ostrich massacre, what we've dubbed as the Ostrich massacre, occurred late last week. Pardon me. And we weren't the only people there. Now, Drea was there. Sid Fizzard was there. Ezra was there eventually. And Chris Dacey has been there for a long time. I'm worried about what they're up to in Ottawa now because, when the cat's away, the mice will play. He's put his life on hold in Ottawa, where he documents protests and other radicalism. And he's been on the Ostrich farm for probably a good month. And he's completely taken in. He's part of them now. This is Ezra, Drea, of course, Chris Dacey, who could be an Albertan. When I met him, I was like, are you sure you're not from Red Deer? Like, very Red Deer vibes. And then Mike Rood also. So that's the team there. And I'm assuming Sid was behind the camera. So let's acknowledge Sid too. Because the first images we got of the cull of over 300 ostriches came to us by way of Sid Fizzard getting up real early, cutting through the morning fog. And we should have given a warning about all the birds laying there. Like, they didn't even bring enough tarps to cover them. They thought 6 tarps would do. And then now they're chewing up the farmland with this skid steer. They couldn't even get turf tires on the skid steer. This pasture is just absolutely destroyed as they shovel the bodies into piles. I would be livid if they did this to my pasture. They couldn't get turf tires on their rental skid steer, which is gross.
Sheila,
And
they don't care. You know that.
they don't care. They don't care. They just obliterated this farm, and they're making sure that they salt the earth on the way out the door.
You know, and Sheila, and I want to commend everybody out there. And Drea and Sid have been doing great work, and thank goodness they're there so we can get the real story. You know, we have a few clips we can throw to. I think the first one, why don't we, you know, when I originally heard on Friday that Ezra, he had just come back from the UK, I believe, and he was going to hop aboard a plane to get out to the Ostrich farm, but the massacre had already taken place. So at first I thought, why is the big boss man, who is surely sleep deprived right now, flying yet even more thousands of kilometers? But I'm glad he did, Sheila, because he really picked up, Ezra did, on the fact that the Mounties went from Mr. Officer Friendly to really a kind of an aggressive behavior, trying to, I don't know, get people to respond in an unlawful manner so they could whack them and stack them. As I understand it, nobody took the bait. But why don't we look at Ezra on site demanding answers from the RCMP, and these particular answers was in regard rather to the Canadian military perhaps sending the drones in. So let's see how that goes.
Did the Canadian forces send a drone? Yes or no? Oh my God, what a PR disaster for these people. Unbelievable. Hey, I got a question. I mean, police have something called discretion. You know what I mean? When you're pulled over at the side of the road for speeding, that's the difference between police giving you a ticket or saying, oh, you be careful, I'll let you go with a warning this time. What's the difference between those two approaches? It's called discretion. The police can choose which way to go on that, based on their judgment, based on their assessment, based on information only they have. They can choose to let something go if they don't think it's in the public interest. That's the test. It's also the test the prosecution uses on whether or not to follow a charge, right? Is it in the public interest to proceed? Is it in the public interest for all these police to bend the knee to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency when they clearly do not have the public interest at hand, and when they evidently are committing animal cruelty? There was no veterinarian there. They were shooting the ostriches. We don't know who. They were shooting them at night. I heard, and here's the shocking part, that there was another round of shootings in the morning when the sun was up. And I think it's sort of obvious what happened.
You know, Sheila, I should point out to our folks a little bit of the backstory in case they thought Ezra was getting super angry, because Ezra in the field, he's the very definition of Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter.
Yeah.
He was raising his voice, folks, not just because he's angry. Well, I'm sure he's angry. Any reasonable person is angry about this massacre. But the RCMP, when Ezra was asking questions, rolled up their windows. So Ezra had to use his outdoor voice. As for the RCMP media relations, they're not returning calls or emails from the media. So Ezra was forced into that position just in case they couldn't hear him, to raise his voice to ask those questions. What cowards.
Yeah. I mean, the police, by and large, up until I think this week, have been pretty good there. I saw it firsthand. I was there twice. They were pretty good. But, and again, I think a lot of the blame lays squarely on the CFIA, because they get to hang out in their little Stay Puft Marshmallow Man suits way in the back. And the police have to face the protesters. And we still don't even know who committed the call. Like, who did the call? Did they hire, like they did when they were dealing with the invasive deer species in the Queen Charlotte Islands, Haida Gwaii? Remember, they said, oh, we need to hire these deer exterminators from, I think it was New Zealand, which is fine. I'm sure they have some expertise in.
No, but wait a minute, Sheila. It's not fine. We don't have hunters in Canada that can do that work.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying it's fine given, like, their excuse was, we need to hire these guys from New Zealand because they have expertise in dealing with invasive species. But there are a ton of people who are subsistence hunters there that could have actually dealt with an invasive species the way we deal with invasive species in other places. Like some wildlife management units in some parts of this country deal with invasive pigs by saying, okay, hunters, you guys who like shooting, go get the pigs and then you bring us the ears and we give you $50. They could have done that, but what I thought was what was the most egregious part of that was when they bent the hunting rules for these foreign nationals to hunt here, including hunting from helicopters, hunting after dark, and using AR-15s, which Canadians have never been allowed to hunt with. You know, we're not even allowed to own them anymore, but they brought in these guys to hunt with them. Like, oh, I guess you can hunt with them as long as you're a foreign national getting paid too much by the state. And I'm curious if they hired that same company, because I don't think the CFIA has the capability to stand on hay bales or on what appears to be like platforms, deer stands, and shoot the ostriches as they come by. Some professional company got the contract to do this, and Canadians deserve to know who they are.
Well, Sheila, our man in Ottawa, he maybe should file an FOI so we can get some of that.
I'm already on it. Already on it.
I should have known better.
I imagine it's going to be redacted because safety, you know.
But, you know, Sheila, to finish Ezra's point, because he set up a bit of a cliffhanger there, that part about more gunshots ringing out in the daytime, the next morning, what was that about? And I hope I'm wrong, but was there maybe under cover of night some ostriches that were shot, but they did not die and they were suffering overnight?
Yeah, that's why you don't hunt at night, is because you don't know if you've actually killed the animal, right? The animal can run off and then suffer and languish. And look, I'm by no means an animal rights activist, but animals that are well cared for taste better for a reason, and you don't allow an animal to suffer, even the one you plan to kill. And the state didn't follow those rules. The things that if you were a farm owner, you would get in trouble for, if you were a hunter, you would get in trouble for, the state did to these birds. And I don't think that's speculation. They went through and saw birds still twitching and then executed them.
Sheila, as you said, you're not an animal rights activist. But where are the animal rights activists? I have
they
my
don't believe these birds should be in captivity. We know that. The PETA types of the world don't believe that animals should be in servitude of humans. So I guess you should just open the fence and let the ostriches run away. In fact, that's why PETA runs kill shelters, is because they don't believe that your happy little Sir Gregor or my happy little Trigger the cat, they don't believe that they should be owned by people. And so they believe those animals would be better off dead, which is why PETA is noticeably silent on this. In fact, these are research birds. Their eggs, not the birds themselves, are used for research, and they disapprove of that as well. So they're happy to watch a mass slaughter of birds because for them, the ends justify the means.
You know, that's a great theory, and I think you might be right. And I know PETA is horrible on this issue. They are even officially against seeing eye dogs for blind people, which is despicable. It's easy for you to take that high road when you've got 20/20 vision. Sheila, do you think there's also another factor here that, you know, we're looking at the people coming out that are demonstrating, and there's kind of this freedom convoy vibe, this right of center vibe, and they can't accept whether you're left, right, in the center. Surely all reasonable people are against animal cruelty and against the idea of hundreds of these beautiful birds being slaughtered, but I guess not. I think they're being a little bit politically driven, that these are
convoy adjacent birds. These are convoy adjacent birds, and they should die, I think, is what these people think.
Jeez.
You see it, like it's a political divide on this issue. And there are people like me who are like, why don't we just test the birds? Why don't we just test the birds if they're, and I believe these birds are healthy. Let me get that out of the way right now. But why wouldn't you just give people the proof if the birds are healthy? Like, just, if you want to kill 300 birds, I think you should be forced to justify it. These are somebody's property at the end of the day. These are somebody's livelihood at the end of the day, and you just can't come and get it. And like, as a farmer, how do you go back to ostrich farming? Well, they took the eggs, as far as we can tell. So they can't even restart the flock with similar genetics. But what happens? Because we saw images the day that the birds, maybe it's on my X account, Efron or Olivia, on the day the birds laid dead in their pens, what was wandering around that farm? A bunch of wild turkeys. And so how do you restart the farm when the wild birds just keep coming? And this will happen over and over again until you find a cure for avian flu. And these birds held the cure. Make it make sense.
Well, Sheila, isn't that another angle to this?
Yeah, look it.
Yeah.
There's the birds, wild turkeys. I caught them in Drea's live stream. She's walking around. She goes, oh, there's wild turkeys there. And I'm like, yeah, these guys are the culprits. But those guys are still left alive and the ostriches are dead. And I'm not saying that all of them, any of them needed to die, but there has to be a better way than just killing entire flocks when you should be looking for a cure.
Unbelievable. Sheila, why don't we throw to a video of the Universal Ostrich Farm owner, Katie. Decrying the idea that this was a humane call. Let's check out what she had to say.
What do you make of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's claim today that they did the most humane way of killing them? Gunshots was the most humane, and that's everything they did. They stuck to it by the book.
I don't know. Let me ask you, Canada. Was that the most humane way you've ever seen? Gunshots ricocheting the sound through our windows that we could hear in our home. Not 2 hours of it, not 3 hours of it, but like 6 hours of gunshots with hundreds of animals trapped in panic when they were supposed to be resting at night. Instead, the rain was pouring on them and they were getting murdered, tripping over each other's bodies in panic. You want to know the character, the personality of an ostrich? They panic. They panic when they have fear of loud noises, and when one starts to panic, then the other starts to panic, and then the other one starts to panic. So in 6 hours, I'm promising you, it was chaos. It was chaos. It was murder. It was the worst way, inhumanely, you could have ever approached this, by hiring, what do they call them? Marksmen, or yeah. So they hired hitmen. They hired hitmen to kill life. Yeah, we chose destruction over science and death versus life yesterday, all because the Canadian Food Inspection Agency will not work or collaborate with us. Science took a back seat yesterday. It has for 11 months. Transparency, truth, communication. It's all a broken system, and that's what we're fighting for at Universal Ostrich Farms. And we still are called Universal Ostrich Farms. And we'll be remembered for that forever. You don't just replace these animals. These animals are decades of lineage, decades of environmental challenges these animals have went through and built up antibodies and resistance. And you know what they showed at the end? The biggest resistance and the biggest resilience. And that's what Canadians need to come up, and they need to rise up, and they need to act like an ostrich, and they need to be resilient, they need to be strong, and we need to show the government that the government is nothing without its people. And we, the people, our voice, we shouldn't be punished for using our voice. Our voice matters. Your voice matters. My voice matters. My family's voice matters. And when we have an opportunity to create change peacefully, like we've done for 11 months, but be shut down, that has a ripple effect across the world. And that will create change. We will become unified. We will create change. We will stand up. We will rise up peacefully. And we will show the world what we can do.
What a delightful lady, Sheila. And you know, I also look at this as a missed opportunity, going back to Ezra of, I think it was about 2 weeks ago almost, when he was scrumming a Liberal MP. Well, he tried to. He asked questions and didn't get any answers. But his spin was, this is getting international attention, including from RFK Jr. The trade talks have been a disaster. It's sort of a Cold War right now, as far as I can tell, between the U.S. and Canada. Why not, as an olive branch, reach out to the Trump administration? RFK Jr. is very interested in those ostriches, and nope. I'm really baffled why they wouldn't go that route, Sheila, given the larger stakes at play in terms of getting a trade deal done.
Well, I think, as Drea has explained many times in her videos, these birds reflect the potential for vaccines that are not linked to current mRNA vaccines. They could potentially be involved in weight loss treatments that aren't Novo Nordisk related. And so we know the Canadian government's ties to Big Pharma and the amount of money that they dump and the amount of lobbying that's done by Big Pharma on the Canadian government. And with these birds dead and the eggs gone as well, that a lot of that research is dead now too.
Unbelievable. I think, you're onto something. I think there's added layers to the unspoken strategy behind this. The ostriches are long gone now, but this story will continue. And I can tell you, Sheila, as you know, I think the vast majority of Canadians are furious about what happened. And some of them are making the CFIA know their fury. Oh, and by the way, they're not writing nasty letters to the editor.
Yeah, this is why we're going to have a hard time figuring out who is involved in the call. Like, who were the exterminators here?
Yes.
Because this is what happened to this CFIA office. And I don't know if this is the worst thing that happens to them. I don't really care.
And a warning, it's gross. So
it is gross, but so is the murder of birds.
Yep.
Feces and eggs. That's in Kelowna, so these would likely have been the ones on site. My goodness. Honestly, it just looks like a Liberal MP's downtown Toronto constituency office.
I think when you go to that extent to use your own waste to make a point, that indicates...
I don't know if that's people or dog or whatever, but it's still gross. I'm not going to get close enough to find out, but...
What is the etiquette when you're using feces, Sheila? What are you supposed to...
I don't know.
I mean, I'm never ever going to do that, no matter how mad you make me.
Yeah, no, I got, I don't know. There's a lot of logistics there in moving turds around, and I just don't want to get involved. There's, in Dr. Robert Malone, who is a outspoken COVID skeptic doctor who has ultimately been proven right. He wrote a couple of Substacks about this. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency's bloodlust for ostriches, he called it. How legitimate is their claim that killing was necessary to preserve the export market? Especially when the Americans said, give us the birds.
Yeah.
So how do you make it about the export market when they said, give us the birds?
And Sheila, can you, educate me, because you were at that farm for several days too. Why was exporting the birds to the U.S. off the table?
I have no idea. You know what? Honestly, I think the farm thought that heads would prevail. And also, if the CFIA says that these birds are infected, how do you get them out of the country? Right? They sort of ended up in a catch-22 where it's like the Americans want them, but the CFIA says they can't be exported because they're infected. A normal thing to do would be to test them, but they were never going to do that. And
that's crazy.
And here, I've been trying to give a lot of thought to them. I might have to write something down about it. But if Canadians need proof of before government acts, the government only has itself to blame for that. We're almost 6 years out of the COVID-19 pandemic. What happened there? they made up social distancing rules. We were just supposed to follow them. They never gave us any proof that they ever worked or where they ever came from. They told us that the vaccines were safe and effective. Effective? Nope. Safe? Ask a vaccine injured person. Then now fast forward to the middle of that, we've got the residential school discoveries that aren't discoveries. And we're saying, show us the proof. You know, you did this just in COVID. You did a whole bunch of stuff to us in COVID without giving us proof. Now you're accusing us of being genocidaires. You're not showing us proof. By the time we get to the ostriches, people are outraged. Just show us the damn proof.
Yep.
If people are perpetual skeptics, the government only has itself to blame.
You're right. And whatever happened, what was one of the lines during COVID? Trust the science, follow the science. Now, of course, as you just said, Sheila, we're finding out every week the fallacy of what we were being told, from the masking to the social distancing to those little plastic shields, and making sure you walk one way up one aisle and one way down another aisle, because that's the way you stop the COVID cooties from transmission. It's horrible. And I have to ask you, speaking practically, Sheila, surely the owners of the Universal Ostrich Farm, they're going to get compensated for these birds. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard, but you know, how do you compensate for 40 years of genetics that you've just wiped out? You know, like you can compensate for the bird, I guess, but how do you compensate for its research value?
No.
How do you compensate for the potential this bird had to stop the next 9 million birds from dying in farms all across the country? But that's just 9 million birds have been culled in British Columbia. You'd think that there would be a smarter, cheaper way to deal with this. You know, like 9 million birds. So you kill them, you compensate the farmer. You kill them, you compensate the farmer. You kill them, you compensate the farmer. Maybe you could let a flock live to figure out how to get to the cure, so we don't have to kill you can't kill your way out of this. I think that's clear when you have those turkeys wandering around.
And Sheila, one last thing regarding this file. Ezra's videos pointing out the change in tone with the RCMP from being pretty good, as you said, a few weeks ago, to almost trying to cause an incident. Here's what I wonder. Is it the officer on the farm doing this, they're freelancing, or are they getting instructions from above, whether it's RCMP brass or the CFIA for that matter? Who knows? I mean, I guess when I'm asking it goes back to, next January, it'll be 2 years since Uncle Fester of the Mounties assaulted and falsely arrested me. An answer we don't have to an important query: were you acting on your own? Or was this Chrystia Freeland's people telling you to give me the works? So I guess in the chain of command, what do you think is going on?
I really don't know. I think there came a point at which the CFIA could easily have said, okay, these aren't turkeys, these aren't chickens, they're not ducks, they're not meant for human consumption. They're ratites with a completely different immune system. We can carve out an exception for these birds. And it could have just ended there. But after they started going to court, I don't know if there was a way they could have got off the crazy train, because once they started going to court, it was about the farmers not following the rules of the state blindly. You know, it was about we have control and they don't. And that at the end of the day is that 300 dead birds is what state control looks like.
Yeah. And Sheila, I think I speak for our audience when I say can't wait to see what your FOI requests uncover. Yes, it'll be highly redacted, no doubt, but maybe that's the starting point in terms of getting some answers. We're already past the halfway mark, Sheila, so we should take a quick ad break. And oh, good grief, from a slaughter of oranges to climate strategy.
Slaughter of your bank account.
Oh no, what a terrible Monday. Yes. Keep with us, folks. We'll see you on the other side.
Your grandpa was a great man. He fought for the freedoms and rights you hold in your hand. Never take them for granted. Keep your freedom passport close. Remember, son, Grandpa did this for you. Know your rights. Know your freedoms. Get your freedom passport today.
You like the hat? Me too. Same strong message about making Canada great again, but in a really cool color, black and gold. There's other colors available, and it's an all-Canadian site. So if you want to signal your tribe or trigger a Liberal, go to mcgahats.ca today.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same
We
rhetoric.
will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
You know, Sheila, when I see a headline talking about climate strategy, I think it's this. If you're in the GTA, put your winter rubber on your vehicle right now. Get a coat on. The honeymoon, in terms of that unseasonably warm October weather we received, it is over with an exclamation mark. But I don't think that's the climate strategy they're talking about in Ottawa, is it, Sheila? It's this obsession with net zero by 2050. I wonder if we'll be alive then. But regardless, Sheila, what do you make of this?
It's a $1 trillion policy.
With a T.
With a T. Yeah. $1 trillion. And the reason they're doing this now is because the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Belém, Brazil, is coming up right away. And so we have Mark Carney. He's the author of Values, which is the Green Manifesto Bible. He made a career at the United Nations post being a globalist bankster on debanking and de-insuring oil and gas projects, and much to the benefit of Brookfield. And so now we're seeing all these initiatives being brought forward, like the small nuclear reactor projects that are coming out of Saskatchewan. They're partnering with Westinghouse. Guess who owns Westinghouse?
Brookfield?
Brookfield. So, you know, it's a $1 trillion project. How much of that is going to go to Brookfield? Every time I see a climate strategy or even like a policy of anything coming out of the federal government, I take whatever it is and then I Google it with Brookfield. Yep. And it's always like 1 degree of separation away from Brookfield. And they're still pursuing this 2050 race to the bottom. I see Tim Hodgson, who is a Minister of Energy. What his hair looks like it's made in a Lego factory. Anyway, Tim Hodgson says there's a global race to net zero by 2050. Where? Where's the race to 2050? Who's racing us? The Chinese? No. The Americans most definitely not. The Russians, they don't care.
India?
India? Exactly. Like, nobody's racing to net zero. Anyways, he says, there's a global race to net zero by 2050. It's time for Canada to compete. Can you imagine how bad it's going to get when we try to compete on getting to net zero? Climate competitiveness strategy will ensure we meet the world's growing demand for this is crazy. There's no demand for low carbon energy around the world while keeping our environment clean and our economy sustainable. There's no demand for low carbon energy. There's demand for energy.
Yeah.
And that energy is carbon based. It's liquefied natural gas, which we have a ton of. It's oil, which we have a ton of. It's coal, we have a ton of. Just let us sell it and use it. Nobody is demanding solar panels in the developing world. They want to be able to cook their food over natural gas or butane as opposed to animal dung.
You know, well said, Sheila. And, you know, that is in line with Mark Carney's so-called economic policy. His strategy is to create new markets that are not the U.S. So, okay, I'm all for that. What do we have that the world wants? Energy. But they won't build pipelines. They won't approve energy projects.
Right. And I asked, maybe we can show that even. I asked Scott Moe about this because I was at the Saskatchewan Party AGM over the weekend. And boy, were they glad to see us. I'll tell you a fun little anecdote. So we're sitting there with the other media people, and sometimes I generally don't care to sit with them. I don't need to sit with them. I can work from anywhere. But I thought I would sit with them, just I don't know them, and I thought my presence would make them uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And so I sat there, and the people leaving the AGM or like going to use the washroom at the AGM had to go down the stairs past where we were sitting. And there was like a railing there. And every time they noticed myself or Lise, they'd be like, "Oh, Rebel News, thanks so much for being here. We love you guys." And then they'd say, "You know what the real problem is? The mainstream media." And they're like 18 inches from the mainstream media when they're yelling that stuff at us. And I thought, I picked the perfect spots. These people have to listen to this all day. But I did ask Scott Moe about, like, do you actually think pipelines are going to get built? Because as it turns out, that Office of Major Projects, that was what C5, Bill C5 was it was passed to create this Office of Major Projects, and we're going to fast track things that are in the nation's interest. And that means things that Mark Carney's hand-selected cronies decide are in the nation's interest. And he selected Dawn Farrell to be the CEO. She's the lady from TransAlta Utilities that colluded with the NDP to get us off coal early in Alberta. And guess what? Now we have rolling brownouts when it gets cold and or hot.
Unbelievable.
So
an energy powerhouse of Alberta has rolling brownouts.
Right, exactly. And that's who he put in charge. So how do you think C5 is going to go? So an order paper question came back last week, and it was like, what's the status of the Office of Major Projects since Dawn Farrell took her position in June? So June, July, August, September, October, November, we're 6 months in. What have they done in 6 months? It's got a $20 million annual budget, okay? There's Dawn Farrell and one staff, her assistant. They don't even have an office space. It's out of Calgary. 30% of the commercial real estate there is empty because of capital flight, because of the oil patch. And so I put that question to him. I'm like, the Office of Major Projects doesn't even have an office. We've seen the budget. Going to get a pipeline? He danced around it because he's not like Danielle Smith. He could stand to be a little bit more like Danielle Smith. And I know you guys watch us. I heard that over the weekend. Take this criticism to heart. Be a little bolder.
You talked about Prime Minister Carney being a different boss in charge. But after seeing that budget and seeing that there's still that zombie industrial carbon tax in there, and knowing that the Office of Major Projects has one staff and no office, are you even remotely confident that we will get a pipeline built with Carney in the Prime Minister's office?
I am hopeful at this point that we not only would be able to get a pipeline built, but a number of other pieces of infrastructure as well. You quite rightfully have operationally, pointed out that there's going to have to be some more resources put into that space. Bill C5 is a stopgap to legislate through what is essentially an unworkable regulatory environment. And so there is going to have to be some resources if that is going to have any success in any way, in particular when it comes to a significant project like a pipeline. I commend Premier Smith for stepping forward and being the proponent in the early days for that project. If there are a couple other to quote Premier Smith, bad laws that are removed, I think you'll see the private sector move into that space sooner rather than later. But if we truly want to become, and I'll use the Prime Minister Carney's words, an energy superpower and have the strongest economy in the G7 nation, it means we have to open up, and I'll say this because I say this to him, we need to open up runway and opportunities for all of our industries, which include the oil and gas industry, to not only maintain their current production, but to expand that production. If we are truly going to be serious about being that economic superpower and balancing our federal budget, all industries are going to need that opportunity to move forward. And we should be proud of that as Canadians, as I always say, because, if you're concerned about the sustainability how we produce things, ours is the best in the world, and so the world should buy more of it, and we should make more available. So I do have concerns operationally. Just back to the budget in particular on the industrial carbon tax, and I did see those statements that they're going to continue to move forward with an industrial carbon tax. This is a conversation where I won't speak for Alberta, but I'll speak for Saskatchewan, where we have been working with not only Prime Minister Carney, but a number of his ministers to see if it is possible for us to chart a path forward that is going to work for the industries that are investing and provide certainty, the desperately needed certainty in our province, and see if we can come to an agreement on what will work in that space. I'm not entirely convinced we will, but we are going to try.
He's going to try. There's a lot to tell me that he's going to try. And I was like, can you just, you could have said, I'm not confident, but I'm going to fight like hell. Just be like, you know what I mean? Why? Why? It's very political. I wasn't pleased with that.
Sheila, to play devil's advocate here, what can Premier Moe tangibly do?
Well, I mean, he could join Danielle Smith in proposing a project of his own. Mm-hmm. In 6 months, this Office of Major Projects has done nothing. Danielle Smith was able to put together a proposal before the Office of Major Projects could even get an office together. What's Saskatchewan doing to call their bluff? Something? Anything?
And again, to go back to Mark Carney's rhetoric about developing new markets, of Canada being less reliant, I always go back, and forgive me if I sound like a broken record here, but it was a day in April of this year when Lincoln Jay and I went out to New Brunswick, and Pierre Poilievre had a presser literally in the port of St. John, New Brunswick. I think it might be the second biggest port in Canada. And, the lost opportunity that Mr. Poilievre spoke of, Sheila, that this would have been the final destination for the Energy East pipeline.
Yep.
1.2 million barrels of oil per day coming into the port. And guess where it was going? Not to the US, it was going across the Atlantic to Europe. New markets. And so think about that, Sheila, developing the oil and gas sector, building pipelines, which are well-paying, great jobs. Over the course of this project, billions and billions of dollars of revenue from markets that are not U.S.-based. And the answer is no. What did Blackface say? There's no business case? Give me a break.
Yeah, I could, 10 minutes up the road, I could tell you where the Northern Gateway pipeline would have been. And that would have been our export pipeline off the north of British Columbia. And even if we were ever to get that pipeline built, it still faces a tanker ban. Just on Canadian tankers, right? Because Alaskan tankers can come straight down through the same strait, but just on Canadians. And we're supposed to say, oh, this isn't specifically about Alberta oil and gas? Sure seems that way.
Sheila, is there any, you've forgotten more about the energy sector than I'm ever going to learn, but is there any other country on the planet, and I'll exempt the Joe Biden 4 years of lost opportunity, but is there any other energy producing planet on the planet that has these kind of onerous restrictions by its own government to develop what is in effect trillions of dollars of revenue from all this wealth?
No, I was going to say maybe Germany with its coal industry. But they've ramped up their coal industry in an effort to get off of Russian oil and gas.
Yeah.
So even they are not as stupid as our federal government. And I'll put this stupidity right at the foot of the federal government, because I think regular Canadians are very pro pipeline. I think they're very pro oil and gas. Sometimes their voting habits don't necessarily reflect it, Toronto, but I think regular Canadians know the value of Canadian oil and gas.
Okay, then. Well, let's change gears then, Sheila. Once again, poppies are in the news.
Yeah.
And not for the best of reasons.
Every year, I thought we would make it through a year without some sort of poppy controversy. But
you know what, Sheila?
We were so close.
It seems impossible. I always, whenever November rolls around, I'm always, keen-eyed about what I call a poppy bozo eruption. Typically, it is a U.S. company working in Canada that does not realize I don't know how sacred the poppy is, because they don't wear poppies in the U.S. And boy, did they get a reality check before the 24-hour news cycle ends. I speak, folks, of, remember a few years ago, a Home Depot frog marched an elderly veteran off their property who was getting donations for poppies. I mean, the negativity of the publicity made them do a mea culpa. A couple years ago, remember, Sheila, it was Whole Foods forbidding their staff to wear it. And I remember we had a pool in the office. How soon do we hear from Whole Foods corporate in the U.S. With a groveling apology? I said 3 p.m. It actually was 2 p.m., so I was off by an hour. And to show you how much they did a 180 on that, the following year, if you went to a Whole Foods in Canada, they were literally giving away poppies that they had bought from the Legion to customers. So they were super, super pro-poppy. But, Sheila, Nova Scotia Chief Justices supporting individual judges banning poppies in the court. I know the Premier, Houston, has spoken out against this. Are these activist judges that hate the poppy, hate Remembrance Day, hate their own country? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever need a reason to fight like hell to keep the notwithstanding clause in the Constitution, it's activist judges like this.
Good point.
Right? They just get, every time there's some sort of controversy about the notwithstanding clause, the activist judges are like, oh, hi, remember us? And I'm like, yeah, this is why we love the notwithstanding clause. As if wearing the poppy is political. I guess it is for crazy people, but for normal people, it's just a symbol of remembrance and respect to our veterans. That is it. And that should be a universal Canadian sentiment. But for crazy people, it's not. And that's their right then not to wear the poppy, I suppose. This is a free country. But to make the rest of us not wear a poppy in the courtroom, that's insane.
Sheila, you're bang on. Contrary to the poppy haters, what they say, it is not political. It is not, if you can believe it, they make this argument, glorifying war. No, it's not. You know what it's really about? It's honoring loss. All the people who sacrificed, regardless of who you are and which country you were fighting for. It is apolitical. And I think the final bit of perverse irony here, Sheila, is that in the court system, them deeming this to be political, had the Allies not won in the Second World War, well, we don't have a democracy. We don't have open courts. We have star chambers. So their very existence would be nullified or drastically different than the way they act now.
I saw a hot take from a conservative thinker online. I can't remember his name. But he basically, and I was like, sometimes these people are so libertarian, their brains fall out. He said, well, if you think wearing a poppy isn't political, I can't wait to hear what you think about pride flags and what all other accoutrements of the left. And it's like, this isn't political. It's not akin to wearing a pride pin.
No, not at all.
Not even close. I thought that this is the dumbest take that I had seen on this issue the entire time. When Looney Tune Thomas Lukaszuk of the Stay in Canada petition in Alberta comes out swinging for the poppy, you might be on the wrong side of the issue.
Well, and you said this was a conservative thinker. You're not talking Chris Denchermont, are you?
No. Well, I'd love to talk about him though soon. But yeah, it was like he said, if you think a judge can wear a poppy, you need to accept that a judge wearing a pride flag or an orange square is also acceptable. Very few people are consistent here. And everyone's like, it's time to stop posting. This is not the same.
Despicable. Unbelievable. And you just said you want to talk about Chris Dencher. Oh, I cannot believe my eyes. I have on my list here possible cringe video.
We'll get to that in a second. I think there's other things that we should touch on. Someone you're a fan of, Don Cherry, canceled for supporting the poppy. He's still out there telling you to wear a poppy, and I love that about this guy. Look at him. He just looks like a little chunk of Canadiana right there, doesn't he? He looks like the man who used to be on the Canadian Tire Money right now. Remember that?
Oh, are you kidding, Sheila? I loved the Canadian Tire Money. Back in the day, I found that the further south and the further west you traveled in the United States, you could pass off Canadian Tire Money as actual Canadian currency. They go, hey, who's that guy on the $1 bill? I'd go, well, that's our first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Mechanic. And it works sometimes.
Was that his name? I forget that guy had a fun name. I forget the guy on the bill. And he did have a fun name. I just can't remember what it was. But Don Cherry looks like him right now.
And Sheila, I am so sorry. Please cheer me up. Please tell me things are different in Alberta. I can tell you in the GTA, and we're, less than 24 hours away from the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, easily more than 95% of people are not wearing poppies. I could bring you to a Walmart, to a mall. I could bring you right down to Yonge Dundas Square tomorrow at 10 a.m. And let's face it, if you're not wearing a poppy with less than an hour to go, you have no intention of putting on that poppy. I'm very sorry, but the Legion slogan, lest we forget, we have forgotten. There's no other explanation for it. It gets worse and worse with every passing year. And it proves Don Cherry was right, that he said nothing wrong in 2019 when he called out people for not wearing poppies. Sheila, I'm still trying to figure out what was his crime, because the proof is in the proverbial pudding.
Yeah, he said absolutely nothing wrong. It should be something we expect all Canadians, including newcomers, to honor the people who fought for this country. Full stop. There's nothing political about that. It's about a respect for the people who came before you and who did the impossible, what seems like, who made the ultimate sacrifice. I don't know how it is considered political to say those things, and he was canceled. Why? Because he had Canada's worst friend.
100%. And you know what? In fairness, even if the Weasel had gone to bat for him, the sports leagues, the networks, they're so woke, they're so political. I don't even know if that would have helped because, well, really, who's going to miss the second banana? But Sheila, tell me, in your neck of the woods, I'll bet you a donut. Prove me wrong. Come to the GTA and find even 1 out of 10 people wearing a poppy as of this day. Is it more prevalent where you live, the wearing of the poppy?
Sure.
It is.
For sure. And yes, and younger people, like the youngsters.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Like the 20-somethings, the Zoomers, they all have their poppies on.
And Sheila, can I say something too? And this might help with the young people angle and newcomers to Canada angle. I believe Remembrance Day is a holiday in Alberta. Okay, it's not here. And I kind of agree with that, and I'll tell you why. What I would like to see is that when it is Remembrance Day, the schools get the school buses, load up the entire school, and go to the closest cenotaph to have the kids take in a Remembrance Day ceremony. I don't think it should be a day off to go to the mall and play video games.
No.
I don't know why the schools don't do that, Sheila. It's a no-brainer, and yet it doesn't happen. And I think it's a good idea. So you have young people get engaged, and newcomers who are young to Canada, they can learn about things like Flanders Fields and understand the significance of the poppy.
Yeah, even our Boy Scouts, our Girl Guides, they all go to the cenotaph too. Like they make the pilgrimage to the cenotaph. It's just I don't know. There's something wrong with Toronto. There just is. There just is. I just want to touch on a couple of things before we get to the Daily Cringe. Okay. I wrote this up this morning from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, but we'll just link back directly to them. The taxpayers of Winnipeg spent $35,000 on the City of Winnipeg's podcast. Did you know such a thing existed? Neither did I. Actually, only 81 people subscribed, and I bet most of them work. 81. And I bet you most of them work for the government.
You know, Sheila,
$35,000. What is that per person? Let's do the math.
While you're doing the math, let me tell you this. I'll tell you how pathetic that number is. You and I could go down to the corner of Portage and Main, stand on an apple box, and just yell our rhetoric, and we would have an audience greater than 81 people just in passersby. That's incredible.
What's this? $432 a person.
Wow.
They paid. And subscribers doesn't even mean listeners. It just means people who are like, fine, my boss made this
good
thing.
Good point. Yeah, you're not necessarily tuned in, right?
Yeah. 19 episodes. Again, 35,000 divided by 19.
Do we have any audio?
$1,800 an episode?
And again, Sheila, this is a common thing we see in municipalities. Your job is to pick up the trash. It's to fill in the potholes. It's to ensure we have clean water, that restaurants are inspected. That is your bailiwick. This business of doing podcasts, raising the flag of the United Nations, stay in your lane, okay? That is not the job of a municipality.
I just, CTF just flagged another story to me, but I will, I'll write it up later. Watch the website. They just flagged another one to me, and it's a good one. It involves climate poetry. So
Hickory dickory dock. Oh!
Yeah. No. David will do it for free.
Climate poetry.
Yes, I don't know. I'm dreading what that's going to cost, but I just see that Devin flagged it to me. So,
what a treat you have, Sheila.
Let's talk about this because this one is near and dear to both of our hearts. The Olympics are ready to ban transgender athletes from all women's events. I can't even believe we have to say this, but finally, they are treating testosterone once again like a performance-enhancing drug.
Yep.
Great.
And Sheila,
possibly including boxers like Amin Khalif. Good.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm actually going to give a pat on the back to the head honcho at the IOC, but it is a lady herself that ran on the platform of making female sports great again after that debacle in Paris, the last time they had the Summer Olympics. And, Sheila, I can tell you, I was looking at the media coverage of this, and I came across the Daily Mail in the UK, and they do polling on stories. Do you agree with this? Yes or no? I looked at the poll. 99% yes. Okay, 99% of people logging on to the Daily Mail poll said this is a good thing. And of course it is. This is restoring female sports. We're getting rid of these grifters. And, with President Trump signing the restoration of Title IX in the U.S., Sheila, we see the pendulum in so many countries and so many organizations swinging back to normalcy. Not here in Canada, though. Not here, not yet. I wonder if it ever will be. But when it comes to transanity, we are seeing a definite change in direction, and it's the right direction, finally.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, if Canada doesn't course correct, they're going to be sending biologically male athletes to the Olympics wherein they can't compete.
Yeah. And
so what's the point?
Oh, Sheila, I go back, it was over a year ago where, Avery Armstrong and I went to a varsity female volleyball game, Centennial versus Seneca, and 5 of the 12 starters on the court were men. So the substitutes are relegated to being cheerleaders. I mean, they didn't miss a minute of playing time. By the way, Seneca beat Centennial. Why? Centennial was literally outmanned. They had 3 dudes, Centennial only had 2. And that is perversity. And the idea that everyone's got to pretend that this is fair. And by the way, don't tell me volleyball is not a contact sport like rugby. Of course, there's way more contact than rugby. But there have been female volleyball athletes concussed because of men spiking the ball off their heads.
They can jump higher, they move faster, they spike that ball harder.
Exactly. And yet, I mean, look at this, folks. If you had X-ray vision, you would see that 5 of these ladies are not like the others. Absolutely despicable. And some of them are even getting scholarships, Sheila.
Of course they are. If you're playing as a student athlete, you are likely on at least a partial scholarship.
Yeah. So, you know what? Good for the Olympics. I think the IOC is almost as corrupt as FIFA. But on this file, they are doing the right thing. I guess, Sheila, there was enough backlash what happened in Paris, especially in the gross boxing events where you were watching a female getting the crap kicked out of her by a biological male. Who thinks that's inclusive? Who thinks that's a celebration of diversity? That's cheating by male grifters.
And violence against women. Here's, it's... Anyway, let's go to the cringe. We spoke about Chris Dentremont. I said his name wrong in an entire video the whole way through, and I was like, you know what? I don't respect the man enough to refilm and correct it, so I just let it go. But he is the now Liberal MP, Conservative MP who crossed the floor on the day of the catastrophic budget, which was worse than the budget that Freeland resigned instead of delivering. And he stood up in the House of Commons like 40 days ago and said, the Liberals' mismanagement of the economy is hurting my people and blah, 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 which is true, by the way, but not enough to stop him from crossing the floor because he didn't get the deputy speaker's position and went to a Conservative MP from Alberta.
Wow.
An actual Conservative MP, and it comes with a $52,000 a year top up. So his feelings got hurt, and he decided to betray his own voters, his volunteers, his donors, everybody who was subject to abuse because they dared vote for a Conservative. He get called all kinds of names. His door knockers, people who took time away from their family to get this ingrate elected. Well, now he's out there saying that he didn't really run on the Conservative platform and he avoided being associated with Poilievre. This is what he's saying now.
You campaigned against the Liberals just 6 months ago, and now you might actually be key to handing them a majority government. How are you personally squaring those two things?
It's hard in a way.
Yeah,
I know what my positioning was during that election. People will say, well, I voted for you or the Conservatives or the platform or many different things. But I know that I did not really run on the Conservative platform. The platform that we had, did not address some of the things that we needed here. Fishing, of course, is always an important issue here. We tried to stay away from, pictures of the leader and all those things, because every single door or many of those doors that we went to, it was, Chris, I can't vote for you this time because I don't like Pierre Poilievre. So we had to try to adapt our campaign style to be able to try to put that to a side and try to ignore some of those facts. But there's a number of things that I can attach to within the platform that the Liberals put out. Many times with my opponent, Ronnie LeBlanc, we agreed on the majority of the things. He was agreeing with my stuff. I was agreeing with his stuff. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to be able to enact things that are right for our ridings. And I still think this is the best avenue for that.
Is it your intention to run as a Liberal in the next election, Chris d'Entremont?
I'm not sure at this point, because quite honestly, I've been around for a long time. It was a 17-year career as a provincial politician. We're on the third election now federally, which was probably one more than I had expected to do. But again, we're in minority situation. We have parties that continue to struggle on getting that majority going. So, I like I said, I'm 56. I need to spend some time at home, maybe. So, we'll talk that over with the family when the time comes, and just see what the political fortunes are. Time. A week is a long time in politics in Canada.
Listen, thank you for making the time for us.
Well, Sheila, the only thing I agree with him in that interview is that he needs to spend more time at home. How about starting tomorrow and we'll trigger a by-election? A couple of thoughts, Sheila. I want to hear what you have to say. First of all, I think it's time now that anyone in the Conservatives who identifies themselves as a red Tory, there's the door. Thanks very much. That just means you're a closeted Liberal, because clearly that was the case with d'Entremont. Secondly, and I'm not being partisan here, I would say the same thing, and I've said the same thing when it's happened the other way. When an MP crosses the floor, you should not be able to join the other party. There's one of two things that should happen.
Yep.
One, you sit as an independent till the next election. Or two, a by-election is automatically triggered. So we have the people say this. I used to be a big fan of the parliamentary democracy system, Sheila. I'm becoming less of a fan and more of a fan of the U.S. republic system. But this was always a major thing that grinded my gears, that you could, run under the banner of Pepsi and then switch the next day to Coke. And also, it is clearly him not getting this speaking role. Sheila, I believe over the course of decades, over the course of years, people can change. You can change your viewpoints and opinions on issues. We're talking 6 months. He did a 180. And not only is it the voters he betrayed, but think of all his staffers, his volunteers, Sheila, that spent endless number of kilometers walking around Nova Scotia, canvassing for him. Think of how they must feel after they see this. You mentioned Ron MacLean earlier. d'Entremont makes that guy look like Mother Teresa when it comes to the Rat Olympics, if you ask me.
I dug up a video of one of the people he betrayed. And I'm shocked that the source is the CBC. Must have pained them to do this. But it's one of his constituents who probably faced social isolation for being a Conservative. Jeez. And this is what d'Entremont does.
CBC Halifax headed out to Chris d'Entremont's riding today to find out how his constituents felt about his defection to the Liberals.
It's upsetting. I supported Chris in the last election under Pierre Poilievre's leadership, as did my wife. So yeah, we were both kind of upset to see it happen, honestly.
I think he should have consulted with his constituents first. We tend to vote Conservative, and Chris is our local representative, so nice to have someone on that party in Nova Scotia.
CBC Halifax headed out.
Sheila, the most appalling mainstream media take I heard on this was last week when it happened, and it was John Moore of News Talk 1010, and he said that basically because this was such a horse race, it could have gone either way. Well, what's the big deal? It could have gone Liberal, so, don't get your knickers in a knot. Can you imagine that?
That means everybody worked extra hard to get Chris elected, It's not like running a Conservative in Alberta where in like 99% of the ridings, you just show up. Yeah. You don't have to work all that hard. people sacrificed a lot of time to help this integrate, and he should resign. You can go to firechris.com, sign the petition. We're going to rough him up a little bit. We want to deploy some resources to his riding to give a voice to the people that he screwed over, like you heard right there. And also, he's a liar.
Yeah.
So you can sign the petition. You can throw some money in there. We're going to we want to have a billboard potentially. Remember what we did to Yara Sachs when we pamphleted her entire riding? We're going to do that to him.
You're reading my mind. We're going to give him the Yara Sachs treatment. And Sheila, I mean, we'll never know for certain, of course, but I really believe in my heart, in my mind, we cost Yara Sachs, Canada's
Definitely.
#1 self-hating Jew, that victory. Of every seat in the 416 went Liberal, except York Centre. Yara Sachs lost, and I think it was our diligence in scrumming her, having her running away from us, having our beautiful Jumbotron equipped truck, showing her getting cuddly with Mahmoud Abbas, the terrorist who literally runs a pay-for-slay operation. And I think we turned the tide on that red tidal wave in the 416. One little victory, but we'll take it.
That's right. It should send a message, by the way, what we are planning for Chris Dentremont. If any of you else get any ideas about betraying your constituents, just don't, because we'll come for you then too. We've got I distanced myself from the leader because nobody liked the leader. Yes. And it's so funny because he's saying this also on CBC. So this is like a couple of months ago. And so a couple of months ago, he says this on CBC. And then just a couple of days ago, he says, oh, I distanced myself from the leader. And it's like, is everybody in this conversation hard of remembering? Because the public sure as hell isn't. Look at this.
A lot of people that voted for me voted for change. They voted for Pierre Poilievre. Youth were voting for him. Young voters were voting for him. People concerned about the fishery were voting for him. A lot of people that voted for me voted for change. They voted for Pierre Poilievre. Youth were voting for him. Young voters were voting for him. People concerned about the fishery.
So,
Sheila,
all those things that he said just now, quite literally, we should, by the way, if you guys are editing team, if you guys are watching, we should do a supercut of him saying quite literally the exact opposite, that the Conservatives weren't voting for, like, people weren't voting for Poilievre. They didn't like him at the door, that the Conservatives weren't strong enough on the fishery. In that interview right there, he said everything exact opposite.
Yeah. And Sheila, make sure it is our team doing the editing, not the BBC panorama. Because you won't get what you're seeking if that's the case.
Or what was it? Who also selectively edited that Poilievre clip?
CTV.
Remember? CTV, yeah, CTV can't do that either.
And I remember once at a Poilievre presser running into a CTV cameraman, he wanted to interview me, and I granted that. And I said, well, what do you think of this scandal of you literally putting words in the leader's mouth? And he did the Sergeant Schultz routine, Sheila. What are you talking about? Hello, you're in the news business. It's your own network.
You don't
being
know the
called
news?
out?
How do you not know the news? Like, what do you do for a living? What is it exactly that you do around here? Like, if you don't know, if you don't have a grasp of the facts, is what you're doing, could AI do what you do? Because if you don't have a grasp of the facts, then you could just be a machine.
Yep,
right?
You know, you're right. And that's, gee, Sheila, do you think you and I could be outsourced by AI one day and cyborgs?
I'm paid for my opinions. I'm paid for my opinion. So no, hopefully not. The second that the machines can come up with smart, sassy quips, I'm screwed. But for now, I'm okay.
Well, I'll tell you, at a big, it was closed to the media, but last month there was a big tech conference somewhere, and what they did, Sheila, Suzanne Summers, who passed away recently, they programmed into an AI program. I mean, I'm a bearer of very little brain, folks, so forgive me. I hope I'm getting this right. Everything she ever said, everything she ever wrote, every movie and TV script she ever uttered, and they had an animatronic version of Suzanne Summers, and the attendees did a mock media conference where they would ask her questions, and based on what had been programmed into this robot or android, for lack of a better term, it answered it. That's what I'm saying. We might not be that far away from a robotic Sheila Gunn Reid.
I hope not. I'll just have to get more unpredictable. I'll just get more unpredictable in the things that I say and do. Try to learn me, machines. Good luck to you. We've got a few chats here.
Okay.
We're like 20 minutes over. We've got one from Sasquatch Chronicles. Gives us $4.99. Who says, thanks for covering the ostriches, Rebel News. I couldn't watch the coverage of the cull. As an American, the Canadian government should be ashamed. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
We could have sure used some Sasquatches out on that farm to, protect the ostriches. Do you believe in Sasquatches, Sheila? Do they exist?
Yeah. For sure. We just can't find them because then the government will protect the land. Right? And like in my mind, I'm like, oh, the Sasquatches, they live on the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains. They're coal country, oil and gas country. And the last thing I need is the government protecting the eastern slopes because of the Sasquatch. If I find him, I promise you people will never know. Never know.
I've heard from the Sasquatch experts they're interdimensional creatures. That's why we can never find.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. There's the whole issue of sustainable populations and anyways, don't get me started. This is how I kill time on the electoral live streams. I talk about the local cryptid wherever the election is being held. You don't even want to know what the Yukon one is. I mentioned it to, we'll tell you off air. I mentioned it to Lise on air and she just couldn't keep her giggles in. I'll tell you off air what the one is. Because I said, I'm glad I'm doing this stream with you and not David Menzies right now. Because it's quite a name.
How can you tease our audience like this, Sheila?
Oh, they can go back and watch. Sasquatch Chronicles gives us $9.99. Give us the birds, and Canada be like, no, we're going to kill them. Now you know why CUSMA is done and no trade deal has happened. This is what we're negotiating with. Yeah, We're not easy people to get along with.
And another self-inflicted wound, just like Dougie's, saying he'll turn the power off with a smile on his face, and it just goes on, and running those ads. And by the way, who signed? Do we have clarity yet, Sheila? Who signed off on those Ronald Reagan ads by the government of Ontario? Was it Mark Carney or was it Doug Ford? Because each is pointing a finger at the other.
It's Doug Ford, and nobody stopped him because he's a madman. Politicians Never Lie gives us 503 and says, Carney, Ostrich massacre, native land grab, collapsing economy, mass immigration, crime wave, ruined U.S. relationship, mass unemployment, loss of respect. Yes, all those things. And Chris Detremont supporting him.
Yep. And it is becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it, Sheila? The most underreported, overlooked story of calendar year 2025, the Privy Council report and its prediction for Canada of 2040, less than 15 years away, folks.
Oh, yeah.
A failed dystopian state. The rich have either fled or are living in gated communities. The rest of us schleppers, we're illegally fishing, hunting, and gathering just for the bare necessities of life. And Sheila, you go to so many, and it breaks my heart, so many big cities and small towns, and you see the tent cities, the homeless people, the drug addicts, and I'm not saying this to be mean or funny, it's almost like the set of a zombie apocalypse, and you can't get away from it. So it's I don't want it to be true, but I'm saying 2040 in some communities, it's already here.
Oh, for sure. We've got one more. It's just Alex Greer gives us $2.99, and I don't see a chat. I just see a little emoji of is that a fox, maybe? All right. Oh, one more. Corey David Schreier gives us $10. That story that David mentioned about Suzanne Summers, that sounds like the movie The Stepford Wives from 1975.
Oh, yes. You know what? That would be kind of nice. I mean, imagine having, well, it doesn't apply to you, Sheila, because you are the wife, but an obedient wife, never arguing, always cooking your meals. And, well, it didn't work out in the end, of course.
Are you done? All right.
In defense of AI. Yes, right. Okay, well, Sheila, it was an absolutely delight with you today, as it always is. And folks, if you like Sheila today, you'll get more of her tomorrow with the wonderful Lise Merle. I'll be back on Friday with the panel discussion. Thank you for tuning in. A special thank you to all of those who gave us super chats. It's greatly appreciated. So, in the meantime, as always, stay sane and... No, stay safe and stay sane.
First to hear. All right. What's your government's plan for imposing the federal backstop on jurisdictions whose industrial carbon price does not meet the benchmark?
So thank you for the question. So what we said in the budget, what we are going to do is we are going to tighten the federal backstop, the rules around the federal backstop, which is industrial carbon price for others, and particularly so that the gap that sometimes exists between provincial level pricing and that backstop closes, and we'll also lengthen the horizon for the backstop. So there'll be more coming on that